Marcus Chen sat behind his old metal desk, feet up on a stack of supply reports. The desk had seen better days, just like everything else on Terra Nova. Scratches covered its surface, and one leg was shorter than the others, making it wobble whenever he wrote something. But it was his desk, and after 30 years running this place, he had grown attached to it. The morning coffee was still warm in his chipped mug when the communication array started beeping. Not the usual beep that meant someone wanted to talk. This was the fancy beep, the one that meant someone important was calling. Marcus had heard it maybe 3 times in 30 years. He pressed a button on his console and the room filled with blue light. A figure appeared in the middle of his office, tall and thin with purple skin and way too many eyes. The alien wore robes that probably cost more than Marcus made in a year, all covered in golden symbols that hurt to look at. "Greetings, primitive beings," the alien said in a voice that sounded like it was coming from inside a metal can. "I am Ambassador Vexthul of the mighty Zephyrian Galactic Empire. I speak for Emperor Kothvar, ruler of 12,000 star systems and master of countless worlds." Marcus picked up a small knife from his desk and started cleaning his fingernails. The knife was old, something his grandfather had given him before the first ships left Earth. It was not much to look at, but it was sharp and it was his. "I bring you a message of great importance," the alien continued. "Your species has been found by the Empire. You will surrender immediately. You will give us half of everything you produce. Your people will join our workforce. Your leaders will serve our governors. This is not a request. This is reality." The hologram showed images as the alien talked. Pictures of huge spaceships that looked like floating cities, armies of soldiers in shining armor, planets covered in massive buildings that reached into the clouds. It was meant to scare people, Marcus figured. "You have one of your planetary rotations to respond," Vexthul said. "If you refuse, we will demonstrate why resistance is foolish. We have conquered over 800 species. We have never failed to bring order to chaos. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Your small population cannot resist our armies." Marcus kept cleaning his nails. He had heard threats before. When Terra Nova was first built, pirates used to swing by every few months thinking they could shake down a research station. That stopped after the third group never made it home. "We are generous in victory," the alien went on. "Those who serve well will be given better positions. Your children will be educated in proper civilization. Your warriors will find honor in our legions. The Empire brings peace to the galaxy." The pictures changed to show aliens of different species working together. They all looked happy, but Marcus had seen that kind of happy before. It was the kind of happy people wore when someone with a big gun was watching. "This transmission is being sent to your primary governmental center," Vexthul said. "We assume this is where your leaders make decisions for your species. Respond within 1 rotation or face the consequences." The hologram flickered and disappeared. The room went quiet except for the hum of the air recyclers and the distant sound of someone fixing a broken water pipe. Marcus put down his knife and opened the bottom drawer of his desk. Inside was a pack of cigarettes, the real kind made from actual tobacco. He had been saving them for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. He pulled one out and looked at it. The paper was a little yellow and the tobacco was dry, but it would do. He reached into his pocket and found his lighter, an old silver Zippo that had belonged to his father. The flame caught on the first try. Marcus took a long drag and leaned back in his chair. The smoke felt good in his lungs. He had not smoked in 6 months, but some situations called for old habits. A grin spread across his face as he blew smoke toward the ceiling. It started as a small smile but grew bigger until he was showing teeth. He began to chuckle, then laugh out loud. "That's cute," he said to the empty room. His desk communicator buzzed. "Marcus, did you just get visited by some kind of purple alien?" Dr. Sarah Kim's voice came through the speaker. She ran the research department and was probably the smartest person on Terra Nova. "Yep," Marcus said, taking another drag. "Says they own the galaxy now. Want us to surrender. Oh, that's adorable. Should I tell them what we do here, or do you want to?" Marcus laughed again. "I think I'll handle this one myself." He pressed a button to open a channel to the alien ship he assumed was still hanging around somewhere in space. It took a few seconds, but the purple alien appeared again, looking annoyed. "Have you made your decision, primitive leader?" Vexthul asked. "Well, yes and no," Marcus said, smoke still curling from his cigarette. "See, you've got a couple of problems with your whole plan here. The alien's too many eyes blinked in what might have been confusion. Problems? What problems could you possibly present to the might of the Empire? First problem, Marcus said, holding up one finger. You're not talking to Earth's government. Terra Nova is just one research station. We've been cut off from home for 30 years. We're what you might call the weird cousins nobody talks about at family dinners. One station? Vexthal looked uncertain for the first time. One station, Marcus confirmed. Population about 50,000, mostly scientists and engineers. And soldiers. Lots of soldiers. What manner of research do you conduct? The alien asked. Marcus took another drag and his grin got bigger. The kind that gets you sent as far away from civilized space as possible. See, Earth has this policy. When your scientists come up with ideas that might end worlds, you don't test them where they might actually end a world. He stood up and walked to the window behind his desk. Outside, Terra Nova looked peaceful. Green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with research buildings and living quarters. It looked like a nice place to raise kids and grow old. And when your soldiers get a little too creative with their problem-solving, Marcus continued, you send them somewhere they can be creative without scaring the neighbors. You expect us to believe one small station can resist the Empire? Vexthal's voice had lost some of its confidence. Oh, I don't expect you to believe anything, Marcus said, turning back to face the hologram. I expect you to attack us. That's what bullies do, right? They find someone they think is weak and they hit them. He sat back down and put his feet up on the desk again. The cigarette was burning down, so he took a longer drag. But here's the thing, Ambassador. When you attack Terra Nova, you're not just attacking 50,000 humans who got sent to the edge of space for being too dangerous. You're attacking 50,000 humans who have had 30 years to think about what they would do if someone tried to hurt them. The alien was quiet for a long moment. The Empire has never been defeated. That's nice, Marcus said. I've never been conquered either. Should be interesting to see which streak ends first. He reached over and ended the transmission. The hologram disappeared, leaving him alone in his office again. Marcus finished his cigarette and stubbed it out in an old coffee cup. Then he picked up his desk phone and pressed a button that connected him to the station's general announcement system. Attention all personnel, he said, his voice carrying throughout Terra Nova. We just received a declaration of war from something called the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. They want us to surrender. He paused and lit another cigarette. I told them no. All department heads report to the main conference room in 1 hour. Bring your files on the projects we've been saving for a rainy day. Marcus hung up the phone and leaned back in his chair. Outside his window, Terra Nova looked the same as it had an hour ago. But he knew that was about to change. He took another drag and smiled. It had been a while since anything interesting happened around here. Dr. Sarah Kim walked into the conference room carrying 3 coffee cups and a data pad that looked like it had survived a small war. The pad was covered in tape and the screen had a crack running down one side, but it still worked. Most things on Terra Nova were like that. Old, patched up, but still working. The conference room was nothing special. A big table made from local wood, chairs that did not match, and a view screen that sometimes showed static. 12 people sat around the table, the department heads who kept Terra Nova running. They all looked curious but not worried. It took a lot to worry people who had been living on the edge of space for 30 years. Marcus Chen sat at the head of the table, working on his 3rd cigarette of the day. He had put on his old Earth Defense Corps jacket, the blue one with patches from 3 different wars. It still fit mostly. So, Sarah said, setting down her coffee and data pad, I've been reading about our new friends, the Zephyrians. Turns out they're kind of famous in this part of the galaxy. Famous how? Asked Dr. Jim Torres, who ran the weapons research lab. He was a big man with gentle eyes who could make explosives out of kitchen supplies. They've conquered 837 different species in the last 1,000 years, Sarah replied, reading from her pad. They show up, make demands, and if anyone says no, they demonstrate why that was a bad idea. Usually involves turning someone's moon into an asteroid field. How many moons do we have? Asked Captain Lisa Park, who was in charge of station security. She had been a Marine before coming to Terra Nova, the kind who volunteered for missions other Marines thought were too dangerous. 2, Marcus said, but they're both pretty ugly, so no big loss if something happens to them. A few people chuckled. That was the Terra Nova way. If you could not fix a problem, you made jokes about it until it seemed smaller. What's their standard conquest procedure? Asked Dr. Michael Webb, the station's chief engineer. He was the kind of man who could fix anything with spare parts and enough coffee. Sarah scrolled through her data. First, they send an ambassador to make demands. If the target refuses, they send a small fleet to destroy military targets and demonstrate their power. If there's still resistance, they send a bigger fleet to end the war. Most species surrender after the demonstration. How small is small? Captain Park asked. Usually about 50 ships, Sarah answered. Enough to handle anything they've run into so far. 50 ships, repeated Dr. Torres thoughtfully. That's actually not that many. It is when each ship can destroy a city, Sarah pointed out. Only if they can hit the city, Dr. Webb said with a smile. Marcus stubbed out his cigarette and lit another one. Okay, let's talk about what we've got in the basement. That got everyone's attention. The basement was where Terra Nova kept the projects that Earth had decided were too dangerous to test anywhere near civilization. Most of the department heads had not been down there in years. Project list, Sarah said, pulling up a new file, starting with the mild stuff. We have adaptive camouflage that bends light around objects, gravity manipulators that can make a ship think up is down, and about 40 different ways to jam communications across an entire star system. That's the mild stuff? Asked Dr. Chen Martinez, who ran the medical department. The mild stuff, Sarah confirmed. Moving on to medium severity. We have nanite swarms that can disassemble any known metal in about 6 hours, quantum tunneling devices that let projectiles pass through shields, and something called Project Honey Badger that I'm not going to describe because we're eating lunch later. Captain Park raised her hand. I worked on Honey Badger. Let's just say it involves making soldiers who think getting shot is fun. Several people made faces. Dr. Martinez looked like he was going to be sick. And the severe stuff? Marcus asked. Sarah took a deep breath. Reality anchors that can make faster-than-light travel impossible in a large area. Temporal mines that explode 5 seconds before they're triggered. And something called the OOPS generator that I'm pretty sure violates several laws of physics. What does the OOPS generator do? Dr. Webb asked. I'm not entirely sure, Sarah admitted. The documentation just says do not use unless the alternative is worse than extinction. Marcus nodded slowly. Sounds about right for Terra Nova. Dr. Torres leaned forward. What about the stuff from the Prometheus project? Everyone got quiet. The Prometheus project was something they did not talk about much. It was the reason Dr. Torres had been sent to Terra Nova in the first place. We have 4 Prometheus units in storage, Sarah said quietly. But using them would be completely insane, Dr. Martinez finished. Only mostly insane, Dr. Torres corrected. And we've done mostly insane things before. Marcus looked around the table. These were good people, smart people. But they were also people who had been sent to the edge of space because they were too dangerous for normal society. Earth had given them a choice, come to Terra Nova or spend the rest of their lives in prison. Most had chosen Terra Nova. Here's what I'm thinking, Marcus said. These Zephyrian folks have been conquering people for 1,000 years. They're used to fighting species who play by the rules. They show up with overwhelming force, make demands, and people surrender because fighting back seems impossible. He took a drag from his cigarette and blew smoke toward the ceiling. But we don't play by the rules, do we? We've never played by the rules. That's why we're here. Captain Park smiled. It was not a nice smile. So we cheat. We cheat so hard it gives them nightmares, Marcus agreed. Dr. Webb was already making notes on his data pad. I can have the reality anchors online in 6 hours. If they try to run away, they'll have to do it the slow way. I can modify the nanite swarms to target specific ship components, Dr. Torres added. Take out their weapons and engines, leave the life support alone. We're not monsters. Speak for yourself, Captain Park muttered. Sarah was reading through more files. There's also the psychological warfare packages, frequency generators that cause fear responses in most known species, holographic projectors that can make our 50,000 people look like 50 million, and something called the brown note that I don't want to think about too hard. What about communications? Marcus asked. We can tap into their networks, Dr. Webb said. Once we know their command frequencies, we can feed them false information. Make them think we have backup coming, or that we're planning to do something we're not actually planning to do. Or we could tell them what we're actually planning to do, Dr. Torres suggested. That might be worse. Marcus finished his cigarette and looked around the table again. Any objections to making life difficult for our new friends? No one raised a hand. A few people were actually smiling. Good, Marcus said. Sarah, I want you to send a message to Earth. Tell them we have visitors and we might need some of the technical manuals they've been keeping secret. The really secret ones. How secret? Sarah asked. The ones that make our basement look like a toy store. Sarah nodded and made a note. Everyone else, you have 24 hours to get your departments ready. We don't know how long it'll take them to get here, but when they arrive, I want them to regret it. People started getting up to leave, already making plans and talking quietly among themselves. The excitement in the room was obvious. These were scientists and engineers who had spent years working on theoretical problems. Now they had a practical application for their work. Marcus stayed in his chair, finishing his coffee and starting another cigarette. Through the window, he could see Terra Nova's 2 moons hanging in the afternoon sky. They really were ugly moons, all gray rock and impact craters. Sarah was the last to leave. She paused at the door and looked back. Marcus, you know this is completely crazy, right? Marcus grinned and blew smoke toward the ceiling. Sarah, if we weren't crazy, they never would have sent us here in the first place. She nodded and left him alone in the conference room. Marcus sat there for a while, smoking and thinking. Somewhere out in space, an alien empire was preparing to demonstrate why resistance was futile. They had overwhelming numbers, advanced technology, and 1,000 years of experience conquering other species. But they had never fought humans who had been told they were too dangerous for civilized space. They had never fought people who considered impossible to be just another engineering problem. Marcus stubbed out his cigarette and stood up. It was time to get to work. Fleet Commander Zartok stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Terra Nova grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked like any of the hundreds of worlds he had helped conquer over the past 50 years. Standard formation, he ordered his fleet. 50 ships spread out in attack pattern, their weapons powered and shields raised. It was massive overkill for one small research station, but the Empire believed in being thorough. Commander, his communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it through. The screen changed to show a human male sitting behind a desk. He was wearing a blue military jacket and smoking something that produced small clouds of smoke. The human looked relaxed, like he was having a casual conversation with a friend. Fleet Commander Zartok, I presume, the human said. I'm Marcus Chen, administrator of Terra Nova. Nice ships you've got there. Zartok was surprised by the human's calm tone. Most species were already begging for mercy by this point. I am here to accept your surrender, human. You have seen the size of my fleet. Resistance is impossible. The human took a drag from his smoking device and smiled. You know, that's what the last guys said. Didn't work out so well for them either. What last guys? Zartok asked, though he was already suspecting he did not want to know the answer. Pirates, mostly. Sometimes slavers. Occasionally some corporation that thought they could muscle in on our research. They all had the same attitude you do. Overwhelming force, demands for surrender, promises that resistance was futile. The human blew smoke toward his screen. Funny thing about futile resistance, it's only futile if you're using traditional methods. Zartok's tactical officer interrupted. Sir, our sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from the planet. What kind of readings? Unknown, sir. The signatures don't match anything in our database. On the screen, the human was still smiling. That would be our welcome party powering up. Nothing too dramatic, just some projects we've been working on. Thought you might like to see them in action. Zartok cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships begin bombardment of military targets. Show them what happens when they threaten the Empire. Sir, his weapons officer said, target locks are not holding. Something is interfering with our targeting systems. Switch to manual targeting. Manual targeting is also failing, sir. Our weapons keep pointing at empty space. On the tactical display, Zartok watched his fleet fire their weapons. Bright beams of energy shot out from 50 ships, all aimed at the planet below. But somehow every shot missed. The energy beams curved away from their targets like they were being bent by some invisible force. How is that possible? Zartok demanded. His science officer was frantically checking readings. Sir, the humans appear to be using localized gravity fields to deflect our weapons. They're creating gravity wells that curve space around their installations. Then get us closer. Gravity fields weaken with distance. Sir, I wouldn't recommend. Do it! The fleet moved toward the planet. As they got closer, Zartok could see the human installations more clearly. What had looked like simple research buildings from space were revealed to be heavily fortified structures surrounded by energy fields and defensive barriers. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving another transmission." The human administrator appeared on screen again. He was still smoking, still smiling. "How's the targeting going, Commander?" "Your tricks will not save you," Zartok said. "We have more firepower than you can deflect." "Probably," the human agreed. "But that's okay. We're not really trying to deflect it. We're trying to redirect it." "Redirect it where?" The human's smile got bigger. "Well, let's just say that when you fire that much energy at a gravity well, interesting things happen." Zartok looked at his tactical display and felt his blood run cold. All the energy his fleet had fired at the planet was being collected by the gravity fields. It was not disappearing. It was being stored, concentrated, and aimed back at his ships. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted, but it was too late. 50 concentrated beams of energy made from his own weapons fire shot back at his fleet. 3 ships were destroyed instantly. 6 more were crippled and drifting. The rest scrambled to get out of range. "What did you do?" Zartok demanded of the screen. "Oh, that's just Project Mirrorball," the human said casually. "Dr. Webb came up with it after he got tired of our defensive shields burning out." "Why absorb incoming fire when you can send it back with interest?" Zartok's tactical officer was shouting reports. "Sir, 17 ships are reporting major damage. 3 ships are not responding. And we're detecting new energy signatures from the planet." "More gravity weapons?" Zartok asked. "No, sir. These readings are—" "Sir, I think they're launching something at us." On the main screen, small objects were rising from Terra Nova's surface. They looked like simple metal cylinders, nothing threatening. But Zartok had learned not to trust appearances when dealing with humans. "Point defense systems. Target those missiles." "Sir, they're not showing up on our targeting computers." "Then shoot manually." Energy beams reached out from the fleet, trying to intercept the rising objects. But the beams passed right through them without causing any damage. "They're phasing through our weapons," the science officer reported. "The projectiles exist in normal space, but somehow our energy weapons can't interact with them." "That's impossible." "So was the gravity deflection system." "Sir?" The human administrator was back on screen. "Those are quantum phase torpedoes. Dr. Torres designed them after he got annoyed with shields. They exist in a quantum state that lets them pass through energy barriers but still interact with solid matter." "What kind of warheads do they carry?" Zartok asked, though he was dreading the answer. "Oh, they don't have warheads," the human said. "They don't need them. See, when a quantum-phased object suddenly shifts back to normal space while occupying the same location as something else." 23 of the strange torpedoes reached Zartok's ships and suddenly became solid again. Since they were now occupying the same space as the ship's hulls, both the torpedoes and large sections of the ships simply ceased to exist. The laws of physics did not allow 2 objects to occupy the same space, so reality solved the problem by removing both objects. 7 more ships disappeared from Zartok's fleet. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "maybe we should consider retreat." "The Empire does not retreat," Zartok shouted. "All remaining ships full power to weapons. Saturate the entire planet." "Sir, that will kill millions of innocent people." "Then they should have surrendered." The remaining ships began charging their most powerful weapons, planet-killer beams that could crack continents and boil oceans. If he could not conquer Terra Nova, Zartok would make sure no one else could have it either. But as the weapons charged, something strange happened. The space around Terra Nova began to change. It looked like the stars were bending, twisting into impossible shapes. The planet itself seemed to flicker, appearing in multiple places at once. "Sir," the science officer said in a voice full of terror, "they're destabilizing local space-time. Our weapons can't lock onto a target that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously." On screen, the human was lighting another smoking device. "That would be our reality anchors working in reverse. Instead of stabilizing space, we're making it very unstable. Your big guns work great in normal space, but this isn't normal space anymore." "You're insane," Zartok shouted. "You could destroy yourselves." "Could," the human agreed, "but probably won't. We've tested this before, just never at this scale. Dr. Kim thinks there's only about a 30% chance we'll accidentally create a black hole." 30%? Give or take. Math gets fuzzy when you're breaking the laws of physics. Zartok looked at what remained of his fleet. 23 ships left out of 50. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His weapons could not hit targets that existed in folded spacetime. And the humans were casually discussing the possibility of creating black holes. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "we need to leave this area. The spacetime distortions are affecting our engines." Zartok stared at the screen where the human administrator was calmly smoking and smiling. In 50 years of service to the Empire, he had never encountered anything like this. These humans fought like they were completely insane. "Fleet retreat," he ordered quietly. "Sir," I said, "retreat. Get us away from this place before they do something worse." As his fleet limped away from Terra Nova, Zartok activated the emergency communication system. He needed to contact the Empire immediately. This was not a simple conquest anymore. This was something that required much more careful planning. On the screen, the human administrator waved goodbye as they retreated. "Commander," the human called out, "feel free to come back any time. We've got lots more toys we haven't played with yet." The transmission ended, leaving Zartok alone with his thoughts and the wreckage of his fleet. He had just lost more ships in one battle than he had lost in 10 years of conquest, and the humans had made it look easy. Emperor Kothavar sat on his crystal throne, listening to Fleet Commander Zartok's report. The throne room was enormous, with walls that stretched up into darkness and floors polished to mirror brightness. It was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. Right now, Zartok definitely felt small. "Let me understand this correctly," the Emperor said in a voice like grinding stone. "You lost 27 ships to one human research station." "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. They used gravity fields to redirect our weapons back at us." "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. They fired projectiles that could pass through our shields but somehow still destroyed our ships." "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty. And they destabilized spacetime itself to prevent our planet-killer weapons from targeting them." Zartok nodded miserably. "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Around the throne room, his advisors whispered among themselves. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years by being stronger, more advanced, and more ruthless than anyone else. No one had ever made their fleets retreat. "How many humans are on this Terra Nova?" the Emperor asked. "Approximately 50,000, Your Imperial Majesty." 50,000. The Emperor stood up from his throne. He was 12 feet tall and covered in scales that changed color with his mood. Right now they were showing deep red, which meant he was very angry. 50,000 primitives defeated 50 of our finest ships. They are not as primitive as we thought, Your Imperial Majesty. Clearly. The Emperor walked down the steps from his throne, his footsteps echoing in the huge chamber. "Tell me about their technology." Zartok activated a holographic display showing his battle recordings. "They appear to have weapons that operate outside known physics. Gravity manipulation, quantum phase shifting, space-time distortion. Our scientists have never seen anything like it. Where did they get such technology?" "We believe they developed it themselves, Your Imperial Majesty. The humans called it research projects. They seem to have many more weapons they did not use." One of the Emperor's advisors, a thin alien with too many arms, stepped forward. "Your Imperial Majesty, perhaps this was a fluke. One lucky victory against an overconfident commander." Zartok bristled at the insult but said nothing. "No," the Emperor said thoughtfully. "This was not luck. Show me their communications again." The hologram changed to show Marcus Chen sitting behind his desk, smoking and smiling. The Emperor watched the entire exchange, paying close attention to the human's words and manner. "This human shows no fear," the Emperor observed. "He speaks like someone who expected to win." "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty." "He seemed almost entertained by our attack," and he mentioned other attackers, pirates and slavers who had tried to take their station before. "Yes, Your Imperial Majesty." He implied that none of those attacks had succeeded either. The Emperor walked back to his throne, his scales shifting to deep purple, which meant he was thinking hard. "Advisor Nexthal, what do we know about human space?" The thin advisor consulted his datapad. "Very little, Your Imperial Majesty. Humans appear to be a young species, barely spacefaring. They have perhaps 24 worlds, all primitive by our standards. We assumed they would be easy to conquer." And yet one of their research stations just destroyed half a battle fleet. The Emperor sat down heavily. I want to know everything about these humans. Their history, their technology, their military capabilities, everything. It will take time to gather such information, Your Imperial Majesty. Then we will take time. Cancel all other expansion plans. I want our full attention on this human problem. Another advisor, this one covered in fur and bearing many scars, stepped forward. Your Imperial Majesty, surely we should respond immediately. If word spreads that a single human outpost defeated our fleet, other species might think resistance is possible. Other species do not have weapons that violate the laws of physics, the Emperor pointed out. But you are right about one thing. We cannot let this stand. Prepare the third assault fleet. Gasps echoed through the throne room. The third assault fleet was 500 ships, enough to destroy entire solar systems. It was rarely used because it was rarely needed. 500 ships, Your Imperial Majesty? Zartok asked. For 50,000 humans? For 50,000 humans who treat physics like a suggestion, the Emperor corrected, and who seem to enjoy fighting. The Emperor activated his personal communications array and opened a channel to Terra Nova. After a few moments, the familiar figure of Marcus Chen appeared in the throne room. His image projected 30 feet tall. Well, hello there, the human said, lighting another cigarette. You must be the big boss. Nice place you've got here, very intimidating. I am Emperor Kothvar, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. You have attacked my forces. Actually, you attacked us first, Marcus pointed out. We just returned the favor. With interest. You destroyed 27 ships. Yeah, that was fun. Dr. Torres has been wanting to test those quantum torpedoes for years. Thanks for volunteering. The Emperor's scales shifted to bright red. You will surrender immediately, or I will send 500 ships to turn your world into dust. Marcus took a drag from his cigarette and grinned. 500? That's cute. You know what we did while you were gathering reinforcements? What did you do? We sent a message to Earth. Told them we had visitors and might need some technical support. Marcus blew smoke toward the camera. You should see the reply we got. 300 gigabytes of technical manuals for weapons projects that were classified so secret that most of Earth's government doesn't know they exist. The Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. If Terra Nova's weapons were just research projects, what kind of weapons did Earth have? You're bluffing, he said. Am I? Marcus asked. Dr. Kim is looking at something called Project Pandora right now. The documentation says it's designed to make suns go supernova on command. Dr. Torres is reading about temporal weapons that can erase entire fleets from history, and Captain Park is practically drooling over something called the Genesis device. What does the Genesis device do? The Emperor asked despite himself. I'm not entirely sure, Marcus admitted, but the warning label says, do not use in inhabited solar systems in 17 different languages. That's either really good or really bad depending on your perspective. In the throne room, several advisors were backing away from the holographic projection, as if the human might somehow reach through and hurt them. You would not dare use such weapons, the Emperor said. You would destroy yourselves along with us. Probably, Marcus agreed cheerfully. But here's the thing about humans, Your Imperial Majesty. When someone threatens our homes, our families, our way of life, we stop caring about our own safety. We'll burn down the whole galaxy before we let bullies like you take it from us. The human leaned back in his chair, still smiling. See, you've been conquering species who wanted to live. Species who thought survival was more important than freedom. But you've never fought a species that considers mutual annihilation to be an acceptable outcome. That's insane. Yeah, we get that a lot. But here's what's really going to bake your scales. We're not even Earth's military. We're the scientists and engineers they sent to the edge of space, because we were too dangerous to keep around normal people. The actual Earth Defense Corps has weapons that make our toys look like kitchen utensils. The Emperor was starting to understand why his fleet had been defeated so easily. These humans were not just advanced. They were completely unpredictable. They fought wars like they had nothing to lose. What do you want? The Emperor asked. Us? We don't want anything from you, Marcus said. We're happy here on our little research station, playing with physics and seeing how many laws of nature we can break before the universe complains. You're the one who started this war. Then how do we end it? Marcus took another drag from his cigarette and seemed to think about it. Well, you could apologize for trying to conquer us. You could promise never to bother humans again. And you could spread the word that Earth is off limits to anyone who values their continued existence. And if I refuse, then my 500 ships will crush your pathetic station, the Emperor declared. Marcus laughed. Your Imperial Majesty, let me tell you something about those 500 ships. Right now they're sitting in what you think is empty space waiting for your orders. But space around Terra Nova isn't empty anymore. While you've been talking, we've been seeding your staging area with quantum mines. What are quantum mines? Mines that exist in quantum superposition until someone with a hostile intent gets close enough to trigger them. Then they collapse into normal space and explode. Dr. Torres estimates we've placed about 10,000 of them around your fleet. The Emperor immediately activated his fleet communications. Admiral Vexikar, report your status. Your Imperial Majesty, came the panicked voice of his fleet commander. Our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout our formation. Unknown devices are materializing around our ships. Evasive maneuvers. Sir, we can't move. Something is holding us in place. On the screen, Marcus was still smiling. Gravity anchors. Once those mines lock onto your ships, you're not going anywhere until we decide to let you go. You're holding 500 ships hostage? More or less. Don't worry. The mines won't explode unless you try to attack us. Think of them as a safety feature. Marcus Chen stood in Terra Nova's observation deck looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 500 alien ships were trapped in a minefield that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. It was Dr. Torres's finest work, and Marcus had to admit it was pretty impressive for something they had built in 6 hours. Behind him, the command center buzzed with activity. Every screen showed different readouts: energy levels, quantum field stability, the status of various weapon systems that officially did not exist. Dr. Kim was at the central console, coordinating with Earth through channels so encrypted that the messages looked like random noise. Earth wants to know if we need backup, Sarah called out without looking up from her screens. What kind of backup? Marcus asked, lighting his 15th cigarette of the day, the kind that travels faster than light and carries enough firepower to sterilize solar systems. Marcus considered this while blowing smoke toward the ceiling. Tell them thanks, but we've got this handled. Besides, if the Earth Defense Corps shows up, these aliens might think we're taking this seriously. Captain Park looked up from her tactical display. Marcus, we are taking this seriously. We've got an entire alien fleet trapped in a quantum minefield. That's just Tuesday for us, Marcus replied with a grin. Remember when Dr. Webb accidentally created that pocket dimension in the cafeteria? This is way less dangerous than that was. The main screen chimed with an incoming transmission. Emperor Kothvar appeared, looking significantly less imperial than he had a few hours ago. His scales had turned a muddy brown color that probably meant he was scared. Human Administrator, the Emperor said, I wish to discuss terms. Terms of what? Marcus asked innocently. Terms of cessation of hostilities. You mean surrender? The Emperor's scales flickered between brown and red. The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender. Then what do you call it when you stop fighting because you're afraid the other guy might blow up your entire fleet? We call it strategic repositioning. Marcus laughed and took another drag from his cigarette. Your Imperial Majesty, let's cut through the diplomatic nonsense. You attacked us. We defended ourselves. Now your fleet is trapped and you want to know how to get out of this mess without losing face. What are your demands? Marcus looked around the command center. His people were watching the conversation with expressions ranging from amusement to bloodthirsty anticipation. These were humans who had spent 30 years being told they were too dangerous for civilized space. Now they had proof that they were right. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus said. You're going to withdraw your fleet from human space. All of it, forever. You're going to spread the word that Earth and all human colonies are permanently off limits to the Zephyrian Empire. And in return, we won't demonstrate why attacking humans is a really bad idea. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. You have shown impressive weapons, human. But the Empire spans 12,000 worlds. Even with your advanced technology, you cannot defeat us all. Marcus's grin got wider. Want to bet? He gestured to Sarah, who activated another screen. This one showed a star map of the local galaxy, with thousands of points of light representing star systems. See that red dot there? Marcus pointed to a star about 20 light-years away. That's the Zerion system, one of your major military bases. Watch what happens when we test Project Helios. A new dot appeared on the map, moving from Terra Nova toward the Xerian system. It traveled faster than anything should be able to move, crossing 20 light-years in about 30 seconds. "What did you just launch?" the Emperor demanded. "Nothing dangerous," Marcus said casually. "Just a small probe with a very special payload. Dr. Martinez designed it after she got tired of people questioning whether our weapons actually work." On the map, the dot reached the Xerian system and stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star itself began to flicker. "You're affecting our sun," the Emperor said in horror. "Just a little bit," Marcus confirmed. "We're introducing a small amount of strange matter into the star's core. Not enough to make it go supernova. That would be rude. But enough to make it very unstable for the next few hundred years." The Emperor was staring at the screen in shock. The Xerion system was home to 3 billion Zephyrians and served as a major fleet base. If the star became unstable, the entire system would have to be evacuated. "How did you deliver a weapon across 20 light-years in 30 seconds? The Emperor asked. "Quantum tunneling," Dr. Torres called out from his workstation. "We fold space-time to create a direct path between 2 points. Very handy for delivering surprises to people who think distance is protection. The beauty of it," Marcus added, "is that we can hit any target in the galaxy from right here. Your ships, your bases, your capital world, all equally vulnerable." The Emperor's scales had turned completely white, which Marcus hoped meant terror rather than rage. "You would destroy inhabited worlds? We don't want to," Marcus said, becoming serious for the first time. "We're not monsters, Your Imperial Majesty. We don't enjoy killing people. But we will protect ourselves and our people by any means necessary." He stubbed out his cigarette and lit another one. "Here's the thing about humans. We're really good at escalation. You sent 1 ambassador, we ignored him. You sent 50 ships, we destroyed half of them. You sent 500 ships, we trapped all of them. You keep pushing and we'll keep pushing back harder. What happens if we retreat and leave you alone? Then we go back to our research and you never hear from us again. We're not interested in conquering anyone. We just want to be left alone to see how many laws of physics we can break before the universe files a complaint." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Around his throne room, Marcus could see advisors whispering urgently among themselves. "And if we refuse your terms?" Marcus looked directly into the camera. "Then we demonstrate why Earth sent us to the edge of space in the first place. We have weapons here that Earth's government decided were too dangerous to exist. Weapons that violate so many laws of physics that using them might actually damage reality itself." He paused to blow smoke toward the ceiling. "Dr. Kim has been reading about something called Project Omega. The documentation is mostly redacted, but what we can read suggests it's designed to make entire star systems simply stop existing. Not destroyed, just edited out of reality like they never happened. That's impossible. So was trapping your fleet in a quantum minefield. But here we are." Sarah looked up from her console. "Marcus, I'm getting a priority message from Earth. What do they want? They're asking if we need them to activate the Damocles array." Every human in the command center went quiet. The Emperor noticed the change in atmosphere immediately. "What is the Damocles array?" he asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his usual grin replaced by a very serious expression. "Your Imperial Majesty, Earth has weapons platforms hidden throughout the galaxy. They've been there for decades, waiting. The Damocles array is what happens when Earth decides that a threat needs to be removed completely and permanently." "How many platforms?" "Classified. But Dr. Kim estimates there are probably several thousand of them, each one capable of destroying everything in a 50 light-year radius." The Emperor's throne room was completely silent now. Even his advisors had stopped whispering. "So here's my final offer," Marcus said, his voice calm and steady. "You withdraw from human space immediately. You declare us off limits to the Empire forever. You spread the word that attacking humans results in consequences that make death look pleasant. And in return, we'll disable the quantum mines around your fleet and pretend this whole thing never happened. And if I refuse?" Marcus lit another cigarette and smiled, but this time it was not a friendly smile. "Then you'll discover why the rest of the galaxy should be grateful that humans prefer to solve problems with science rather than violence." The Emperor looked at his advisors, at the star map showing his trapped fleet, and at the human who had just threatened to erase star systems from existence. "I accept your terms," he said quietly. "Smart choice," Marcus said, his friendly grin returning. "Sarah, release the quantum mines. Let His Imperial Majesty's ships go home." On the tactical display, the energy signatures around the Zephyrian fleet began to fade. 500 ships that had been trapped for hours suddenly found themselves free to move. "The mines are disabled," Captain Park reported. "Their fleet is withdrawing." Marcus took a long drag from his cigarette and waved at the screen. "Safe travels, Your Imperial Majesty. Feel free to visit again when you want to see our new projects. We're working on some really interesting stuff." The transmission ended, leaving the command center quiet except for the hum of machinery and the distant sound of someone celebrating in another room. "Think he'll keep his word?" Sarah asked. Marcus looked out at the stars where the alien fleet was already jumping to faster-than-light travel. "He will. He's seen what we can do when we're just defending ourselves. He doesn't want to find out what we can do when we're actually trying to hurt someone." Dr. Torres looked up from his workstation. "So what do we do now?" Marcus stubbed out his cigarette and grinned.